Hey guys, Aaron here with Functional Aesthetics in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So today I am doing the long-awaited follow-up video to my video that was entitled Fix Your Hips, Exercises How to Assess and Correct Upper Cross and Lower Cross Syndrome with Yoga Poses. So in that video, I just basically went over the whole assessment, a little bit of background on force couples, muscles, things like that, and an explanation of what upper cross syndrome and lower cross syndrome are. And then in this video I'm going to be dealing with the specific yoga poses that you can do to help correct your lower cross syndrome. And then in the subsequent video, I'm not sure exactly when I'll get to it. Got a pretty tight schedule right now, have for the past couple months. But as soon as I can, I'm going to get another one out there explaining upper cross syndrome again, a little bit of a recap on that, and then yoga poses as well as some other stretches you can do to help correct upper cross syndrome. So, as a bit of a recap here, lower cross syndrome is basically where you have tightness in, if you remember in the other video, the force couples, right? So the force couples acting on the hips are the quadriceps, hip flexors, and abdominals in the front, and the glutes and the erector spinae muscles in the back, as well as the hamstrings, but primarily glutes and lower back muscles. So the glutes, as you recall from that video, help to pull down on the pelvis in the back. The erector spinae muscles help to pull up on that. And then the hip flexors in the front, when they are tight, since they help to elevate your knee like this, when they're tight, they're going to bring you forward into an anterior pelvic tilt, which is what the lower cross syndrome is. It's where you have a pelvic tilt like this that then in turn causes you to hyperextend your lower back. It makes you kind of have your butt stick out like this, and it can also, in addition, make your stomach stick out a lot farther. So you might be able to see a six-pack and everything like that, have lean abdominal muscles, but for some reason your gut sticks out, and it's not because you have visceral fat or something like that necessarily. It's probably more due to the fact that you have structural misalignment in your hips. So in this video I'm going to show you a couple yoga poses you can do to help correct that. And the first one we're going to do is a low lunge. Okay, so the low lunge, some of the benefits of this exercise are, in addition to other benefits, but primarily as it relates to lower cross syndrome, is that it's going to help you stretch your hip flexors. It's going to help you stretch your quadriceps a little bit, stretch out your glutes on the opposite leg, and this is particularly helpful for people who have a desk job where they're sitting like all day like this, so then the hip flexors tend to become short and tight. Or if you're a runner or a cyclist, because you think about a person biking, right? They spend a lot of time biking and they're in a very limited range of motion, right? So those hip flexors can be shortened and tight. And then as a runner, you're always, those knees coming up like this all the time, right? So you can develop tight hip flexors there, which can then in turn cause you to lean forward too much. So over time causing some other problems, which I will talk about in a later video. So I'm going to demonstrate real quick how the lunge is done and the proper technique for doing it, and we will cut the video here so I can prep for that, and we'll get into that in the next slide. Alright, so here we are going to do the low lunge. So it's not overly complicated, but there are a few key points that you want to keep in mind. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to lean down, so your hands, place them on either side of the leg that's bent in the front, and then extend your other leg out behind you. And you want to try to put your heel out in front, kind of roll into the front of it like that, and really focus on that stretch in the supporting leg here. That's what's going to help maximize that stretch in your glutes, stretch in the hamstrings. If you want a little added stretch to your calves, you can also do it where you rest on the ball of your foot like this, and the weight of your body helps to add extra stretch to your calf muscle there. So you're going to be out here, and then this is where it stretches out the hip flexors. So you want to start first, standing position, taking a deep breath, getting a rhythm with your breathing, and then On an inhalation, you're going to sink down, rock back a little bit, add that extra hip flexor stretch, and then lean forward as you exhale. Continue that deep inhalation, exhalation rhythm there for about 3 to 5 breaths. And then you can rock back. Exhale. Inhale. Stretch that opposite hamstring out a little bit. And then return to the starting position. Before you switch to the opposite side, it's good to stand up. Deep belly breaths. Open up the rib cage. Establish a steady breathing pattern again. Switch sides and repeat on the other side. So again, the benefits of this exercise as it relates to lower cross syndrome is you're going to be stretching out your hip flexors, stretching the glutes on the opposite leg, and stretching the abdominals a little bit. If you get that, if you're straightening yourself out here while you're doing that, which, as we talked about before, tight hip flexors are going to cause your hips tilt forward to the front. So we need to relax them a little bit. If you're always in this position, your glutes are going to be kind of turned off. They're going to be stretched out, but weak and inactive. So by doing this, if you also focus on tightening up your glute muscles at the same time, you'll not only increase the stretch to your hip flexor muscle, you also tighten up your glutes and increase the strength and activation, help to activate the glutes a little bit, which then can be beneficial when you're doing glute-specific exercises to help you get more benefit out of those exercises by first switching the glutes on. So that's one method you can do that. All right, so we're going to move on to our next exercise in the next clip. All right, so our next exercise is going to be Warrior One, which is kind of a progression from the low lunge. So adds even more benefits to strengthening up the glutes, strengthening the quadriceps, and also stretching out the hip flexors, in addition to some benefits that will be beneficial for upper cross syndrome, which we'll explain later in the video on upper cross syndrome. All right, so how you perform the Warrior number 1 pose is basically you standing with feet next to each other. You step back in kind of a wide stance here, and then simultaneously as you drop your butt or your hip down towards the ground here, you are going to take in a deep breath through the nose or the mouth if you can't do the nose yet. Exhale as you come down. And then continue to breathe deeply through your belly, all the way out or all the way in. Breathe it all the way out. Then extend your arms up towards the ceiling. So, how did that look on the other side? Stepping forward, taking a deep breath. And because you're keeping your knee off the ground, it causes tension in that hip flexor muscle, so it both stretches and strengthens the hip flexor at the same time, in addition to also stretching out your quadricep muscle. So then, obviously this leg, the quadricep, is getting a lot of work on, and then as you're down here, your glutes on the bottom of this are also getting some work. So, and you want to continue that cycle for 3 to 5 deep breaths. Allow enough time to breathe all the way in, breathe all the way out, pause, breathe all the way in, pause, and when you feel like you need to breathe in or breathe out, then follow the next progression back and forth. Don't rush it, there's no time limit on this. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, then go back to the middle just like you did with the other one, some deep breaths. Center yourself, get your breathing regulated again, and then switch to the other side. All right, so we're going to go to our next one, which we're going to be moving to the back side to focusing on the hamstrings. All right, guys, so our next exercise You probably did this when you were in grade school. All of your PE classes and stuff like that to stretch your hamstrings, but it's still good exercise to do. There's a variety of different ways you can do it. I'm going to show the way without using any additional equipment. But basically, you just lie on your back. Always begin your exercise by taking in a deep breath. You're going to raise one leg, both legs up to get yourself in the proper position. Then you're going to grasp one leg and trying to keep one of your legs locked out, you're going to drop the other leg down towards the floor. So taking a deep breath, exhale as you go down. And you can also use your quadriceps to assist in this. So as this relates to lower cross syndrome, just as the quadriceps and the hip flexors work synergistically, you can sometimes have tight quadriceps that are causing, that are actually the culprit, as opposed to tight hip flexors, because they perform in a synergistic way, or they help each other out. The hip flexors mainly help to elevate the leg, but the quadriceps also helps to extend the knee. So if your knee can't extend all the way, or if your knee can't bend all the way because the quadricep is tight, it's going to limit you from being able to extend your hip all the way. So just in that same fashion, the hamstrings also share a similar function with the glutes. So the hamstrings help to bend the knee, but also help in assisting to extend the hip a little bit, which is one of the primary functions of the glutes. So if the hamstrings are inhibited, you're going to have problems also in the hips there as well. So again, going back into our hamstring stretch, both legs up, lower the opposite one. And you can also hit the hamstrings up a little bit higher if you then drop down, bend your knee, and pull your knee up towards your chest. So locking your knee out, you're going to feel a really intense stretch right behind the knee here. But if you want to feel it up higher, bend your knee, come down like this. And then you can also get, if you have tight hip flexors, this is also good for stretching those out as well. Alright, so now we're going to move on to my favorite hamstring stretch, which is also helpful for your upper back and shoulder mobility as well. Okay, so our next stretch is the wide leg forward bend. So this is kind of like a all-in-one sort of stretch. You know, you are stretching your hamstrings, you're stretching your lower back, you're also strengthening the hamstrings and the calves. You're stretching out the inside part of your hamstrings there. You are stretching out your shoulders, opening up your chest, so stretching the chest out a little bit, increasing mobility in that upper back region. All of those all at once. You're also stretching, in fact, the forearms as well. So great overall all-around pose. Oh, in addition to stretching, which in some later videos I'll get into the importance of this too, but stretching out your cervical extensors here in the back of your neck, which can often become very tight depending on the kind of job you have. So without further ado, we're going to get into the exercise, and this is how you perform it. So you're going to start off a little outside, shoulder width apart, taking a deep breath, exhale, inhale a couple times, relax your belly, loosen up your neck a little bit. Then you're going to lace your fingers together in front of you, put it back behind you. You're going to take in a deep breath, then exhale as you elevate your chest. Lock your arms out. Rotate the shoulders down and back. Establish a deep breathing pattern. Then from that inhale position, inhale, As you go down, you're going to exhale. So keep those knees locked out. So you might have noticed as I was in that downward position there, every time I breathed in, I would come up a little bit, and then as I exhale, I try to stretch down a little bit. Really focus on externally rotating your shoulders. Squeeze your shoulder blades together, push them down, and relax as you get into that position. Don't force yourself to go down, just relax, and every time you're breathing out, try to go a little bit farther down. And then breathe in. As you rise up a little bit, exhale, try to go even a little bit farther. So, love this exercise. Give it a try. See if you don't like it as well. Might take a little bit of time getting used to. As you become more and more flexible, you can then bring your legs closer and closer together. That'll give more of a hamstring stretch. If you're looking for more of an inner thigh stretch, you can stretch out farther as well. At the end of that exercise, you might have noticed that I was kind of, I relaxed my arms round to the front and just started breathing deeply. That's a great way to kind of help recover from that pose. And then also, you can finish it off with some stretching for your quadratus and lumborum here, also the upper parts of your glutes. If you just exhale and then and kind of go back and forth in a sweeping motion. And then also after you've done that, finish it off with extra hamstring stretch by So, like I said, give it a try, and we'll move on to our next exercise. Okay, so our next exercise is called a revolved lateral. And this is actually an exercise that I cannot do all the way because my mobility is actually not quite good enough to do it. But it is something that I'm working on, and hopefully will help me kind of fully get rid of some of the issues that I had with my lower cross syndrome and upper cross syndrome that I used to have. So so how you're going to perform it is similar to doing a low lunge, but the difference is you're going to incorporate your upper body into it a little bit, which is also going to stretch out the glutes, which, as we talked about before, you want to have strong glutes to help keep that pelvis in neutral alignment, counteract tight hip flexors in the front. But before we strengthen them, we want to stretch them to prepare them for the strengthening, or stretch them, then activate them, then strengthen them. So the stretching is going to make them more receptive to any activation exercises we do at a future date. So you're going to go down to that low lunge position. And once you're in that low lunge position, take a deep breath. You're going to bring up one hand, cross it over at the top. Bring your elbow on the outside of this leg. This is how it helps stretch your glutes, because your muscles in your upper back and your arm are wanting to twist you the opposite direction, but your leg is there stopping them. So since the glutes function is to extend and externally rotate, you're bringing it into internal rotation, which is then effectively stretching the glutes. So from that position, you come in, and you might just want to camp down there for a while. But if that's comfortable, bring your other hand around, kind of like you're praying. Press your palms together, raise your knee off the ground. And this is about as far as I can go at this point. But you just try that out, and then if you want to couple that also with a piriformis stretch, even more help for the glutes. Because underneath the glutes lies your piriformis, as well as a bunch of external rotators of your leg. You want to keep those healthy in addition to your glutes. Start with the big muscle, move into the smaller muscles. And how you do that is you can either lay on the ground. I find that you get a better stretch if you're standing, and if you want to, you can use something to hold on to, but you sink down to that hip, and it's going to stretch out those external rotators in your butt right there. Alright guys, well that concludes this video. I was planning on adding 2 more poses into this video. However, the video has gotten excessively long, so I'm thinking I'm either going to add those in on the video for yoga poses to address upper cross syndrome, or put them in a separate video entirely. So if you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, and you'd like to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Functional Aesthetics EC. When you do, hit that bell icon so you don't miss a video when they come out. And if you found this information helpful and you think it would help a friend, be sure to share it with them, like the video, and we'll see you all next time for more health and fitness related information. Thanks guys for watching. Talk to you soon.